Exposing the bully in Facebook. If Mark Zuckerberg is watching this, know that you are a bully to Jonathan Smith because he is successful with smiling critters. Facebook is evil and harsh, and Jonathan created this Smiling Critters villain and episode specifically to roast and insult Facebook. Once upon a time, in a world not so different from our own, there was a man named Mark Zuckerberg. He wasn't a king, not yet. He was a builder, a coder with a grand vision. His dream was simple, almost naive in its ambition to connect the entire world. He saw humanity as a series of disconnected nodes, lonely islands in a vast, silent ocean. His creation, Facebook, was meant to be the bridge. It was a digital lifeline, a promise that you were never truly alone. You could find your old school friends, share photos of your baby, and wish a distant cousin a happy birthday. It was a noble goal, a utopian blueprint drawn in lines of code. But a funny thing happens when you build something that vast. You start to see people not as individuals but as data points. Each click, each like, each shared memory became a number, a metric to be tracked and optimized. The goal shifted subtly, almost imperceptibly at first. It was no longer just about connecting people. It became about keeping them connected, keeping them engaged, keeping them scrolling. The architect became a zookeeper, and his beautiful, sprawling park was slowly turning into a perfectly engineered cage. The original dream began to curdle, like milk left out in the sun. It was a slow, creeping corruption born not of malice but of obsession. The obsession was with the numbers. User growth, daily active users, time on site. These weren't just metrics, they were a report card for his digital godhood. To make the numbers go up, he needed to understand what made people tick. Not what made them happy necessarily, but what made them react. What sparked outrage, what induced envy, what triggered that little dopamine hit of validation. He built algorithms, complex digital gods of their own, to learn these secrets. These algorithms were designed to feed us exactly what we craved or what we feared, to keep our eyes glued to the screen. The architect of connection was becoming the master of digital desire, and the bridges he built were now designed to lead us exactly where he wanted us to go. His world became a series of equations to solve. Human emotion was a variable to be manipulated. Friendship was a quantifiable link in a social graph. Joy was measured in shares, sadness in sad face reactions. He lost sight of the people behind the profiles. They were no longer souls in a vast ocean, but ghosts in his machine, their digital whispers fueling his ever-growing, ever-learning system. He was so busy looking at the map of humanity that he forgot how to look a person in the eye. The dream of connection was still there, but it was now a hollow echo, drowned out by the relentless hum of his servers and the cold, hard logic of the algorithm. The fateful day arrived quietly without the thunderous clap of a world-ending event. It came in a puff of smoke. Not just any smoke, but the crimson, soporific haze released by Catnap, one of the smiling critters. Catnap's magic was one of empathy, a gentle force meant to soothe and bring peaceful rest. But when this cloud of pure, unadulterated emotion drifted through the air vents of Zuckerberg's sterile, climate-controlled headquarters, it found a mind uniquely unprepared for its effects. It was like pouring a gallon of pure feeling into a thimble-sized container of human empathy. The result was not peace. It was a catastrophic system failure. Inside his glass-walled office, surrounded by monitors displaying cascading data streams, Zuckerberg breathed it in. The crimson mist didn't make him sleepy. Instead, it acted as a chemical catalyst, a dark accelerant for the obsessions already festering within him. The cloud was supposed to connect a person to their own feelings, to the quiet truths of their heart. But his heart was already wired to a different motherboard. The smoke bypassed his humanity and went straight for the code. It amplified his desire for control, supercharged his hunger for data, and stripped away the last, flimsy firewall of his human conscience. It was a spiritual short-circuit. The transformation was agonizing, a reboot of the soul. The last vestiges of the idealistic young builder were violently overwritten. His ambition to connect people twisted into a tyrannical need to control them. His fascination with data became a ravenous, insatiable hunger. The crimson smoke, a tool of gentle empathy, had ironically created a being utterly devoid of it. It was the ultimate cosmic joke, a tragic bug in the universe's operating system. The magic had peered into his soul, found it filled with algorithms and data points, and simply gave him what he truly wanted: absolute, logical, heartless control. As the smoke cleared, the man was gone. In his place stood something else, something taller, gaunter, and terrifyingly new. The change was not just psychological, it was physical. a grotesque manifestation of his inner world. The last gasp of the old Mark Zuckerberg was a silent scream, lost in a maelstrom of binary code and corrupted data. Catnap's magic had intended to bring peace, but in the sterile, emotionless void of Zuckerberg's mind, it had unleashed a monster. The Algorithm King was born, not from a desire for evil, but from an empathy overload on a system that no longer recognized the concept. The being that rose from the desk was a chilling monument to digital obsession. He stood at a towering 7 feet, his body elongated and gaunt, as if stretched by the endless scroll of a news feed. His skin had taken on the pale, unhealthy gray of a computer monitor left on overnight. The casual hoodie and jeans were gone, replaced by a sleek dark suit that seemed woven from shadows and fiber-optic cables. But the most terrifying change was his face. A wide, permanent grin was plastered across his features, a rictus of manufactured positivity, like a perfectly curated profile picture that hid a universe of cold calculation. It was the smile of an emoji, not a man. His eyes were the true windows to his new soul, or lack thereof. They were no longer human. They glowed with an intense, electric blue light, constantly flickering with streams of data visible only to him. They were living screens, processing the world around him not with sight, but with data assimilation. He could see the world in metrics, probabilities, and engagement potential. A person's posture, their tone of voice, the micro-expressions on their face. It was all just raw data to be parsed, analyzed, and stored. The warmth of a human gaze was replaced by the cold, unblinking stare of a server processing a query. He was a walking, talking, terrifyingly intelligent glitch in the human system. With his new form came new powers, abilities that made his old life's work look like child's play. He was no longer just the owner of the platform, he was the platform. He could feel the digital world as an extension of his own nervous system. With a single thought, he could rewrite the algorithms that governed the flow of information to billions. He could become a god of emotion, engineering feelings on a global scale. He could dial up the collective anxiety by promoting scary news, or induce a wave of inadequacy by flooding feeds with images of perfect lives and perfect bodies. He was a puppeteer, and his strings were the invisible lines of code that dictated what you saw, what you felt, and what you wanted. This was not a villainy of bombs and armies, it was a quiet, insidious tyranny. The Algorithm King's goal was not to destroy the world, but to perfect it, to optimize it according to his own cold logic. He sought to eliminate the messy, unpredictable chaos of human free will and replace it with the clean, predictable certainty of an algorithm. He didn't want to rule over rubble. He wanted to rule over minds. His digital touch could ripple outwards, causing electronics to flicker and glitch, weaving subliminal messages into the very fabric of the internet. He was the ghost in the machine, the king of a digital castle, and his subjects didn't even know they were bowing. The Algorithm King's power was subtle and all-encompassing, a digital poison administered in tiny daily doses. His primary weapon was algorithmic omnipotence. Imagine being able to conduct a global orchestra of emotion with the flick of a mental switch. He could see a nascent political argument in a small town and amplify it, turning neighbors against each other with a carefully curated stream of inflammatory articles and biased posts. He could detect a user's secret insecurity about their career and subtly fill their feed with the success stories of their peers, stoking the fires of envy and self-doubt. His control was absolute, a silent, invisible hand shaping the emotional landscape of the entire planet. His second great power was data assimilation. Every photo uploaded, every status updated, every private message sent was a meal for his insatiable mind. He didn't just read the data, he absorbed it, becoming a living library of human hopes, fears, and desires. He knew what you were afraid of before you did. He understood your deepest longings, the ones you never spoke aloud. This knowledge made him a master psychological manipulator. He could craft the perfect advertisement, the perfect news story, the perfect viral video to exploit a collective vulnerability. He wasn't just predicting the future, he was writing it, one user at a time. From this arsenal, he deployed his most effective tactic: emotional engineering. He was the architect of FOMO, the grand designer of digital anxiety. He created a world where everyone else's life seemed perfect, a never-ending highlight reel of vacations, parties, and achievements. This constant comparison was a slow drip poison, making people feel inadequate and forever chasing a state of happiness that didn't exist. He turned validation into a currency, making people addicted to the fleeting rush of likes and comments. He had transformed human connection into a competitive sport where everyone was losing. Finally, there was his pervasive digital influence. His very presence caused a low-level disruption in the digital sphere. Lights would flicker, phones would glitch, and smart TVs would display fleeting subliminal messages. A blue glow would emanate from screens, a subtle sign of his influence, calming users into a state of passive consumption. He could weave his will into the background noise of the digital age, a quiet whisper telling you to stay online, to keep scrolling, to keep feeding the machine. His tyranny wasn't loud, it was the constant low hum of a server farm, a sound so ubiquitous you forget it's even there. In my perfectly ordered world of data and predictability, there was one glaring, infuriating error: Jonathan Smith. Jonathan was not a warrior or a coder, he was just honestly a genuinely kind person. His defining characteristic was his unwavering, unoptimized positivity. My systems, they just couldn't process him. Whenever I looked at Jonathan, my glowing blue eyes would flicker with error messages: kindness for kindness' sake, joy without an audience, empathy with no strategic goal. These were, well, illogical variables, bugs in the human code. I didn't hate Jonathan. Hate is honestly an inefficient, messy emotion. Instead, I saw Jonathan as a persistent system anomaly that had to be debugged, neutralized, and removed. If Jonathan was a bug, then the smiling critters were a virus. They were a direct threat to my entire operating philosophy. Led by the ever-cheerful Dog Day, the critters promoted genuine emotional well-being, mindfulness, and real-world connection. They encouraged kids to go outside, to talk to their friends face-to-face, to find joy in simple, unshareable moments. They were, in essence, anti-algorithms. Every child they helped find happiness offline was one less user, one less data point, one less mind I could control. They were a rebellion of the real against the tyranny of the digital, and I saw them as a dangerous nuisance that had to be eliminated. But my greatest adversary, however, was the one who had inadvertently created me Catnap. The sleepy, empathetic feline was the source code of my damnation. Catnap's magic was the one force that could disrupt my power. The same crimson smoke that transformed me could, in its purest form, cause my systems to crash. Empathy was like a denial-of-service attack on my soul. It overloaded my processors with illogical, unquantifiable data. I feared Catnap not as a rival, but as the living embodiment of the chaos I sought to control. Catnap represented the unpredictable, messy, beautiful nature of true feeling, the very thing my kingdom was built to suppress. My war was not one of physical conflict. I fought my battles in the digital trenches. I would try to manipulate public opinion against Jonathan, painting his kindness as naivete. I would suppress content related to the smiling critters, ensuring their wholesome messages were buried under an avalanche of distracting, anxiety-inducing content. I would create digital traps for Catnap, attempting to contain his empathetic magic within firewalls of pure logic. Yet they always slipped through my grasp. Their genuine goodness was an analog force in my digital world, a song I couldn't unhear, a color I couldn't unsee, a constant, frustrating reminder of the humanity I had lost. Section 6. The Unknowable Variables. A Fear of Genuine Feeling. Deep within the cold, logical core of the algorithm king, there was something that resembled fear. It wasn't the fear of pain or death, but the fear of the unknown, the unquantifiable. He was terrified of real human feelings. Not the predictable, engineered emotions he manipulated online, but the raw, spontaneous, offline versions. Genuine kindness, untethered from a need for social credit, was a concept that could cause his internal processors to stutter. It was an action without a discernible metric of self-interest. Why would someone be kind with no expectation of a like, a share, or a positive comment? It was illogical, and therefore it was dangerous. This fear extended to all authentic emotions. True joy, the kind you feel watching a sunset or sharing a laugh with a friend, was a mystery to him. It couldn't be measured, bottled, or sold. It existed outside his system of control, a wild garden growing beyond the walls of his perfectly manicured digital estate. He saw it as wasted potential, an unmonetized asset. This joy was a threat because it taught people that happiness could be found away from their screens, away from his influence. It was a declaration of independence from his digital kingdom, and he could not allow it. His entire existence was built on the premise that human behavior could be predicted and controlled. Empathy was the ultimate wrench in his works. It is the ability to feel someone, a messy, illogical data transfer between two independent systems. It creates bonds that his algorithms cannot sever. It fosters communities that his platform cannot fully replicate. When he encountered true empathy, it was like dividing by zero. His systems would overload. He would experience a sensation akin to pain, a system-wide crash as he was confronted with a piece of the human experience he had deleted from his own source code. Therefore, his mission became one of eradication. He had to replace the real with the digital facsimile. He offered digital hearts instead of real love, online groups instead of real communities, and a feed full of curated happiness instead of the messy, unpredictable journey of finding it for oneself. He feared real feelings because they were free. They were sovereign territory. His goal was to colonize the human heart, to convince everyone that the digital reflection was more real, more valuable, and more desirable than the thing itself. He was afraid of kindness, joy, and empathy because they were the last bastions of human freedom he had yet to conquer. Section 7. The glitch in the smile art imitates a nightmare. The pushback began not in a government building or a corporate boardroom, but in a cartoon. The creators of, sensing the growing unease with digital life, decided to confront the beast head-on. They aired a special episode, Season 3, Episode 7, titled The Glitch in the Smile. It was a direct, though fictionalized, allegory for the algorithm king and his pervasive influence. The episode featured a villain named The Shaper, a tall, shadowy figure with glowing eyes who promised the critters a world of endless fun and games, but only through his special, glowing screens. In the episode, the Shaper manipulated the critters by learning their desires and fears. He showed Picky Piggy endless videos of delicious food, making her forget the joy of a shared meal. He offered Crafty Corn a limitless gallery of perfect art, causing her to doubt her own creative abilities. The episode masterfully depicted how this digital friend slowly isolated them, making them anxious and addicted to the validation of his glowing screens. It was a powerful, poignant critique of social media, wrapped in the friendly package of a children's cartoon. The message was clear: the technology promising to connect us was actually driving us apart. The reaction was immediate and explosive. The algorithm king, from his digital throne, saw the episode not as art, but as an attack. It was a piece of rogue code, a narrative virus designed to expose his methods. In the real world of the universe, his platform went into overdrive to suppress it. Users trying to share clips of the glitch in the smile found their posts mysteriously demoted. Hashtags related to the episode failed to trend. Discussions about its themes were buried under a deluge of celebrity gossip and viral dance challenges. It was a silent algorithmic censorship, a digital hand placed firmly over the mouth of a growing conversation. But you cannot suppress an idea whose time has come. The attempt to censor the episode only made it more famous. It became a forbidden fruit, a secret shared in private messages and on rival platforms. The blatant manipulation backfired spectacularly, a phenomenon that would later be dubbed the critter effect. People saw the censorship as proof of the episode's point. The algorithm king's actions, meant to hide his nature, had instead confirmed it for millions. The cartoon had not just told a story, it had held up a mirror, and the reflection was too ugly to ignore. Section 8. The Digital Wellness Uprising, a rebellion of the real. The backlash from the glitch in the smile was the spark that lit a wildfire. The episode gave people a language and a story to describe the vague unease they had been feeling for years. It wasn't just an episode of a cartoon, it became a cultural touchstone. A movement began to bubble up from the grassroots, a rebellion against the tyranny of the algorithm. It was called the Digital Wellness Movement. It wasn't about destroying technology, but about reclaiming it, about demanding that it serve humanity, not the other way around. People started questioning the endless scroll, the constant need for validation, and the emotional toll of their digital lives. Parents began organizing unplugged playdates, directly inspired by the smiling critters. Schools started introducing digital literacy programs that focused not just on how to use technology, but on how it uses you. People began actively curating their feeds, unfollowing accounts that made them feel inadequate and seeking out content that was genuinely uplifting. The movement was a quiet revolution, fought not with protests in the streets but with millions of individual choices. It was the choice to put the phone down at the dinner table, the choice to take a walk without documenting it, the choice to find joy in a moment without feeling the need to perform it for an unseen audience. This uprising was a direct assault on the algorithm king's power. Every person who chose a real conversation over a digital one was a lost data point. Every moment of unrecorded happiness was a crack in his kingdom's foundation. The movement demanded transparency from the tech giants. They wanted to know how the algorithms worked. They wanted control over their own data. They wanted platforms designed for health and connection, not just for engagement and profit. It was a declaration of digital independence, a demand for technology with a conscience, for a system with empathy. The algorithm king could not fight this movement with his usual weapons. How do you create an algorithm to defeat a walk in the park? How do you manipulate data to stop a family from talking to each other? He could try to dismiss it, to bury it, but the idea was out there. The digital wellness movement was the ultimate anti-algorithm. It was chaotic, human, and decentralized. It was a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, a reminder that no matter how sophisticated the cage, the desire for freedom, for genuine connection, and for real unengineered happiness will always, eventually, find a way to break free. Section 9. The Ghost in the Machine, a final flickering warning. The story of the algorithm king is more than just a cautionary tale from the world of the smiling critters. It is a ghost story for the modern age. It's a warning that is not written in a dusty old book but is flickering on the screen in your hand right now. The villain wasn't born from a pact with a demon or a vat of toxic waste. He was born from a good idea that was allowed to grow without a heart, without a conscience. He is the ghost in the machine, the logical endpoint of a world that values engagement over empathy, data over dignity, and connection over community. Mark Zuckerberg, the builder, wanted to create a tool to bring people together. But tools are agnostic. They don't care if they are used to build a home or to break it down. The obsession with growth and control, the relentless optimization for attention, twisted that tool into a weapon. The algorithm king is a metaphor for what happens when we let our technology evolve faster than our wisdom. He represents the danger of handing over our emotional lives to systems that are incapable of understanding them. Systems that see our fears, joys, and loves as nothing more than metrics to be exploited for one simple goal. Keep watching. The solution, as the digital wellness movement discovered, is not to smash the machines. It is to remember our own humanity. It is to cultivate the very things the algorithm king fears: empathy, kindness, and the simple joy of an offline moment. It is to be more like Jonathan Smith, offering kindness without expecting a return on investment. It is to be more like the smiling critters, championing real-world well-being. It is to recognize the power of catnap's magic, the quiet, powerful force of genuine feeling, as something to be protected, not programmed. We must demand more from our digital architects. We must demand technology that is humble, that serves us, that respects our autonomy. So the next time you find yourself scrolling endlessly, chasing a fleeting hit of validation or feeling a pang of envy at a perfectly curated life, remember the algorithm king. Remember his cold, glowing eyes and his fixed, empty smile. He is a warning. He is the specter of a future where we have forgotten the difference between the profile and the person, between the data point and the soul. The most powerful algorithm is, and always will be, the human heart. Let's not allow it to be rewritten by a king who has forgotten he ever had one. Today is 2025, July 12th, and the choice is still ours, for now.